It was the funeral service for Noella. During her memorial ceremony, family and friends gathered in front of her home. Her spouse was startled when he saw her enter through the door, still alive and well. She fiercely informed him, "I'm going to make you pay for everything." Then he approached her carefully and made contact with her. Upon realizing that she wasn't a ghost but rather alive, he was taken aback. It seemed impossible, he thought. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Noella Rukundo lost her spouse in 2004. She had 5 children with him. The two had always hoped to escape Burundi, their birthplace, in search of a better life. Therefore, Noella didn't change their plans even after her husband passed away. In the hopes of making progress, she relocated to Australia with her children. Fortunately, Noella was able to work for a relocation organization. She was happy with her situation and started to feel optimistic about her children's future. A widower named Balenga Kalala was introduced to Noella a few weeks after she began working at the agency. This individual was employed by the agency as a translator as well. He and Noella eventually became enamored with one another. Noella reconsidered her resolve to be single after meeting Balenga because she couldn't image her life without him. He was that nice, kind, and caring. Fortunately, Balenga had the same thoughts. He proposed to Noella after they had been together for a time, and she said yes. After they relocated to a larger Melbourne house, Balenga raised Noella's children as his own. He soon had 3 children from her. However, Noella later discovered something unsettling about her spouse. Years after they moved in together, Noella realized her spouse had a violent side that she had previously never noticed. Balenga began to become agitated over little matters. He also vented his resentment on Noella. Things worsened much more, and he began physically abusing her. He would go down on his knees, scream uncontrollably, and swear it would never happen again after hurting her. Noella found herself repeatedly forgiving her spouse because she loved him so much. A few years later, Noella received heartbreaking news from her stepmother in Burundi. She had died. Noella felt obliged to this woman since she'd taken good care of her and her children, giving up money and time for them. So she made the decision to go home and say her final goodbyes. While traveling from Melbourne to Burundi, Noella's spouse often contacted her to inquire about her well-being. He informed her he was already missing her and was looking forward to her coming back. Noella went back to the hotel room where she was going to spend the night after the funeral ceremonies. The sound of her husband's voice was all she needed to feel better because she was so exhausted. Noella's phone rang at that very time, and her husband was calling. She informed him how exhausted, agitated, and depressed she was feeling. Then her spouse suggested she go outside and breathe some fresh air. "My love, you will feel better afterward," he remarked. Noella took his advice to heart without hesitation. After putting on her shoes and opening the door, she left. This woman had no idea that she was going to live out her greatest nightmare. She will soon find herself torn between the great blue water and the devil. Noella saw 3 males walking toward her while she was just a short distance from the hotel. One of them lifted his shirt and pointed a revolver at her before she could even think. "Avoid screaming. I'll shoot you if you start screaming." The man remarked, "They're going to catch me, but you'll already be dead." Even though Noella's heart was racing, she followed instructions. She went into an adjacent car after the man. As soon as she was inside, they blindfolded her and took off. Before the driver shut off the motor, Noella noted that they had been driving for around 30 minutes. She was escorted to an abandoned building by one of the men after being pulled from the automobile. They bound Noella to a chair as soon as they entered. One man then moved to a corner and made a phone call. "We have her now," he said, and Noella listened. Following the call, the man approached Noella and pressed his face against hers till she could feel his breath on her skin. Noella was frightened. After that, he removed the blindfold. The man was frightening and dangerous looking. With a finger, he raised Noella's face and said, "Why is this man trying to kill you? How did you treat him?" Noella was perplexed. She was at a loss as to why someone would want her dead. In addition, She had no resentment towards anyone. "Which man?" Noella spoke while crying. The next thing she heard broke her heart. "Your spouse," the guy replied, releasing a caustic chuckle. "No, not at all possible. Such a thing would never come from Balenga. He would never injure me in this way. I know how much he loves me." Noella let out a cry. She informed them rather frankly that they were making things up since she didn't think the man was telling the truth. The group leader became so enraged that he called Noella a blind idiot and smacked her. He called someone and informed them where they would dispose of Noella's body after killing her in order to demonstrate that he was speaking the truth. Then he put the phone on speaker, and Noella knew at once that the voice was her husband's, the guy she had 3 children with, the man she was devoted to and faithful to. Why would he consider killing her? Noella fainted at the sight of the awful and agonizing truth. The men were looking at her as she finally came to. Her children didn't deserve to have a father who was so harsh, she thought to herself. With her gone, who would look after them? She was aware that she was hopeless. Noella saw that the men were at her differently as she accepted her fate. Their expression had softened from a few minutes before. "We don't hurt ladies and children," one of them remarked just now. "Thank your stars, please." When Noella heard this, she began to feel hopeful. She suddenly recognized that God always provides for his people. After holding Noella for 2 days, the men freed her, but issued the following warning. "Your husband may have hired others to harm you, and they may not spare your life. Get out of Burundi within 80 hours or else pay the price." The men also surprised Noella by giving her financial receipts and a memory card that had the transcript of their chat with her husband. Noella may use all of them to hold her husband accountable. Noella contacted her pastor back in Melbourne after reaching a secure spot. The man was astonished to learn of all that had occurred. He informed Noella that her spouse had informed everyone that she had died in an automobile accident. Noella felt her head spin at what the pastor stated next. The man informed her that her funeral was already being organized by her spouse. Noella arrived back in Melbourne safely on February 22, 2015. That day was also her funeral. At about 7:30 p.m., she arrived at her home. As she cowered down in a corner, she watched her husband care to the final group of mourners. Noella emerged from her hiding location and headed directly for her husband when everyone had departed. "Hello?" she murmured. Balenga's scream was piercing when he spotted her. He appeared to be seeing a ghost. He walked slowly toward his wife, touching her shoulder as they drew inches apart. That's when he thought she was real, not just a ghost. Knowing that his strategy had failed, Balenga broke down into tears and apologized. However, his apologies were ignored. Balenga was taken away by several police officers who had been informed by Noella a few minutes earlier. Noella got a court injunction against her spouse a few days later. She also complied with the police directive and didn't speak to Balenga over the phone till later. Balenga admitted on the conversation that he gave the order for the guys to kill Noella because he had a terrible suspicion that she was cheating on him and that one day she would leave their children behind. Balenga had no idea that this call had been taped. Noella would receive the justice she was due with the help of all these pieces of evidence. When the court played the taped conversation between Balenga and his wife, he started crying and blamed the devil for his conduct. During the official interrogation, Balenga denied any involvement in what happened to his wife. Balenga received a 9-year jail sentence from the Melbourne court in December 2015. The court reduced his punishment since he entered a guilty plea. Following her imprisonment, Noella and her children relocated from Melbourne to a different city. Despite not fully recovering from her ordeal, Noella is doing a lot better these days and doesn't let her past to define who she is. "I'll stop at nothing to look after my children." Noella remarked, "God gave me a second chance at life, and I will make the most of it. I hope for a calm life for this mom and her children. I hope her story inspires you." Which section was your favorite? After his renters abandoned his property in disarray, the landlord exacts retribution. There are several duties associated with owning a rental property. When they rent to new tenants, most landlords are aware of the risks involved, but one landlord could never have been more ready for this. He checked his bank account as soon as he woke up, and there was still nothing. The occupants hadn't even paid a single rent payment since moving there more than a year ago. Though this was the last straw that broke the camel's back, they kept making promises. Unaware that he was going to face his darkest dread, he was prepared to get revenge. Thomas Revo views life with optimism. He was approached by a couple that wanted to rent an apartment from him, and they had 3 well-behaved children. He started filling out the required papers, including the financial and security checks, as they were decent enough. The pair passed with flying colors, and Thomas felt confident he was making the proper choice because there were no warning signs. To make sure the French flat was ready for the family, Thomas took a week off from work. He painted the walls a brand new white coat and made sure everything was in working order with the plumbing, cornices, doorknobs, and fittings. To make the floors sparkle, he even leased a wood polishing equipment. Being an excellent landlord, Thomas took great care to ensure that the rental home was immaculate for the new family. Sadly, Thomas would quickly discover that all of his diligence and effort had been in naught. The seemingly perfect family started moving inside their boxes, which were arranged neatly inside the hallway after everything was in order. After giving them the keys to their new house, Thomas went about his day. Before long, 2 months had stretched into 4, and Thomas was still waiting for his rent payment. At first, Thomas thought it was a banking error. Something had to go wrong, right? Thomas made the decision to give his bank a call. Perhaps the payments were just not appearing in his account. Without the rental property income, he was beginning to feel the pinch in his wallet while he took care of his own family. Thomas lost his temper the moment the woman on the customer service line informed him of what was happening. There were no payments of any type being made by the renters. When he called the renters, no one picked up. Presuming the family was preoccupied, he kept calling. Subsequently, his phone call was disconnected, leading Thomas to believe that they were deliberately avoiding him. They ignored him for a full 14 months. Though Thomas saw himself as a patient guy, he was reaching his breaking point. After pulling up, Thomas proceeded down the driveway towards the apartment building. He rapped on the apartment door, but nobody picked up. Anticipating the outcome, he removed an extra key. Now was the right moment to express his true feelings towards those renters. He was shocked to see what was in the hallway as he opened the front door. Trash piled up to the ceiling inside the flat. The hardwood floor was covered in a mound of shattered furniture and toys left by kids. Every surface was covered with filthy plates, and the stench of spoiled food was overwhelming. How could someone live like that? Thomas was astounded by what he was witnessing. His mouth twisted in distaste as he processed it all. There were evident signs that dogs were also residing in the house because someone had punched holes in the walls. It took him a minute to collect himself before he started formulating a strategy. Thomas had put his confidence in this family to take good care of and respect his land. Even his background checks came out clean. How were they able to harm him in this way? How were they able to survive in such squalor? Thomas was so obviously disrespected by others that he nearly broke down. The land was formerly held by his grandpa, who left it to Thomas upon his death. Thomas had a family to support, so much though he hated to rent it out, he needed the money. And now, it was all wrecked. It was obvious that he was intending to give them a lesson. Pulling out his cell phone, Thomas made a call to his attorney. He gave Thomas the go-ahead right away. When Thomas asked the neighbor next door if the renters had been there lately, he said that no one had been there in weeks. Since the tenants would undoubtedly have to pay for what they did, Thomas made the decision to give it another shot. The family was happily included in the directory. After a quick look, he discovered their new address. Thomas went from room to room evaluating the damage, growing more irate in the process. They moved without saying anything, leaving Thomas to clear up the little bit of rubbish. He clenched his hands into fists, his brow dripping with perspiration. Though usually well-mannered, Thomas was on the verge of losing his temper. The men started pouring into the flat as soon as the loud vehicle arrived. The inside of the house irritated them so much that they started the difficult task of packing the entire filth into the dump truck. When Thomas revealed his plan, everybody cheered. Everyone was glad to assist in enforcing the punishment: garbage, broken furniture, paper, and dog feces, because they wanted to see the renters get what was rightfully theirs. There was rotting food and dirty plates packed inside the dump truck. Thomas had never seen such disdain and trash in his whole life. It was time to move the flat's belongings, which belonged outside the resident's new apartment, which was conveniently located a few streets away, as the garbage had finally been removed. The vehicle backed up to the property, let out a beep, 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 and emptied the whole load of trash into the driveway. As people started to assemble to see the events, Thomas could only smile in idea of his awful tenants' reactions upon receiving what had been presented to them. Their front yard was going to resemble a landfill since the family had treated Thomas's house like one. What would they do? More importantly, how would the new landlord of the renters respond? It goes without saying that there would be some strong opinions on the internet about it. Thomas made the decision to post his revenge film to Facebook and YouTube. Before long, the film was being shared by people worldwide. The tale was even covered by the local news station, and the video has already amassed over 1 million views. Thomas's efforts were commended by the majority of comments. Someone said, "Love it. In the US, this has to be completed. Some repulsive tenants have been spotted in my neighborhood." However, not everyone was pleased with Thomas's actions. Some expressed reservations, saying things like, "It's not a bad idea, but you just made a big mess for the new landlord, who can now sue you for jumping on his property if these tenants can't pay rent and move to a new place which is not their place. Man, think. You placed a new landlord in the middle and he did nothing to you. I understand why you're unhappy." Thomas, though, is sticking with his choice. The inside was in ruins. Everything was completely ruined. The walls have cracks in them, the carpets are sloppy, and the painting has to be redone. Everything will need to be cleaned up because of the terrible stench. "Before we cleared the space, I had a lawyer inspect the damage," Thomas stated. "This is how this flat was returned to me. Living like that with 3 kids, bravo, is another message he has for his former occupants. Shame on you, not to mention the food that's gone bad in the refrigerator and the meals that restaurant owners gave to you out of their heart. I hope your new landlord has success." In the end, Thomas was required to reimburse them for all of the harm they inflicted on his assets. Thomas went on, "I took everything back to them after loading it all into a garbage. I spoke with the authorities when I met them. I'm not worried right now. Everything had to be brought to the landfill and the former occupants had to clean the walkway. Everything is cleaned as of Tuesday night. Have these occupants learned their lesson?" Sadly, Thomas is not the only individual with a similar tale. Landlords have to clean up the mess negligent renters leave behind every day. Let this tale serve as a gentle reminder to always show respect for other people and their possessions. Dad gets an envelope from a stranger. After opening it, he dashes out the door. Family Guy Rob Edwards was having an unbelievable week. In Florida, the weather was pleasant and everything were going well. As they sat and had breakfast, he glanced at his stunning wife. Rob is ecstatic with their recent 21st anniversary celebration. However, there was more cause for celebration. Rob's oldest child, Cole, had recently graduated from high school, and the family was getting ready for his coronation. For the past 18 years, everything Rob did for his kid was meant to set him up for this special day. Rob's pride and delight were his children, but he had no idea what this specific day would bring. On the big day, Rob got up early to do some errands. A trip to the bank was first on the agenda. He hummed as he drove, slicing through the gridlock. Upon arriving at the concrete structure, he searched for a parking spot, while seeing that the bank appeared to be somewhat occupied on this specific morning. However, he remained upbeat despite the lengthy line at the bank today. He turned and held the door open for the woman who was running after him as soon as he got into the building. She smiled and gave him a kind thank you, and Rob reflected to himself that there was always place for gallantry. He gestured for the stranger to move ahead of him, and she gave him a disbelieving look. Rob told the woman to get in line ahead of him, nodding and grinning. He wasn't in a rush because he still had time to do his errands before the commencement of the ceremony. "Please proceed ahead of me," Rob replied with pride. "My son graduates today. I want to enjoy each minute as I slow down." The woman chuckled, and while they waited for the enormous line of people to move, the two struck up a conversation. After Rob informed her about his daughter Taylor and son Cole, the woman shared some details about her own family. The woman was eventually in line to be serviced by the teller when it moved up. She waved as she broke away from the line, beaming at Rob. Rob grinned back at her, assuming their conversation was ended. but little did he know that this woman was hiding something. Rob grinned as he marched over to the teller to finish his transaction when it was his turn to be serviced. His left arm was resting on the counter when, a few seconds later, he felt something slip under it. His smile turned to a confused one. He snapped to see the enigmatic figure rushing by him. When Rob looked down, he noticed that someone had tucked a little package beneath his elbow. He almost heard the woman say something as she walked by. His thoughts whirled as he glanced at the envelope. His curiosity about what it may hold changed all of his optimism to distrust, yet he was about to be totally taken by surprise. Rob stood for a while, looking confused. With a baffled frown, he turned to face the bewildered individuals in line behind him, but their blank expressions had no more explanations than his own regarding the woman's peculiar actions. He had to open the envelope if he wanted to find out what was inside. He inhaled deeply and tore the seal as a result. Rob extended his arm to grasp the dubious-looking envelope and cautiously peered inside. His heart began to race. He felt he could have made a grave mistake, but it was too late to turn back now. He initially believed the package to be empty, but when he tore the paper apart, his jaw fell wide in shock. Before Rob had cracked open the package, his imagination had run through every possible possibility. After all, he was inside a bank. With a frantic glance towards the doors, he was glad to see two security officers in uniform waiting just in case. Fortunately, he wouldn't need their help just yet, but he had to perform a double take when he saw what was in the package. There was money in the envelope, but why? Rob quickly snatched his documents off the counter and hurried out the door. He knew he had to track down the enigmatic woman, but as soon as he set foot on the pavement, he believed she had already vanished. However, he had to find out why she had given him the cash envelope. Looking both ways through the crowd, she was nowhere to be found. Then, just by happenstance, he looked forward and saw her, far off, getting into her car. Rob thoughtlessly dashed across the road to pursue her, but she had already started to pull out of the parking lot. She lowered down her window as she spotted Rob sprinting toward her car. As Rob arrived to the car, the woman stared in shock and he lost his breath. "I can't take this," Rob then said as he attempted to hand her the letter back through the glass. Rob was shocked when the woman calmly gave him the explanation for why she had chosen to give him the envelope with the $50. "You glow when you talk about your boy," the woman said. "He is blessed with you. I also wish him blessings." When Rob had talked about his kid, his face had been beaming with pride, and his fatherly love had moved the mystery woman. Rob didn't know what to say when he realized, so he took a picture of the gracious woman and carried out his tasks. Rob was so happy for Cole at the graduation ceremony that he felt like he may cry. But his thoughts were occupied by the unanticipated happenings of the day. One last task remained to be completed, so he posted a description of what had happened between them that day, along with a picture of the enigmatic woman on Facebook. However, he wasn't prepared for the answer he would get. "First of all, I can't believe your boy is 18, a commenter remarked. "Second, the transforming power of compassion and love has been on my mind a lot. Our lives are like vapors, they come and disappear in an instant. I appreciate you giving me your blessings. Stories of unplanned generosity and paying it forward are quite popular. That's the whole goal of life, and it couldn't have come to a more worthy individual. Fantastic tale, Rob. As usual, really well-told story with bad language. Look me up when you publish a book. I believe I have a couple names for you already." "I was so touched," a buddy of Rob's continued. "I have never seen her before and don't even know her name, but I will always remember her love. I requested to snap a photo of her." He gave her a neck hug. "Today's world needs more of this," Rob wrote. "The compassion, not the money. I gave a total stranger a hug. I love my son with all my heart, and he got love today." Rob continued by describing how moved he had been by the stranger's gesture. "I think most of you who know me understand what I stand for. Doesn't it seem familiar? The love a father has for his son fills his heart. I'm fortunate. Colonel Edwards, I'm very happy for you. Thank you to the buddy who is a bank client," Rob went on. Furthermore, he is not the only person to have shared a tale about giving back. In the United States, the custom of performing random acts of kindness has grown in acceptance and is even honored with a whole day. To promote acts of compassion in the month of February, organizations, people, and groups commemorate National Random Acts of Compassion Day. The idea is straightforward: show a stranger some tiny compassion. However, Rob's tale demonstrates that kindness doesn't require a reason, even on one specific day of the year. What a priceless tale. I appreciate you sharing. God bless her for showing the world what love looks like and for spreading love. Love is what the world needs more of, another commenter on Rob's post said. Surprisingly, though, Rob isn't the only person who has ever accepted money in an envelope from an unknown person. GingerSnap1316, an Imgur user, shared another touching tale of an unplanned act of compassion. She was home alone one day when the doorbell kept ringing. After 3 tries at answering the door out of frustration, she saw a stranger standing there. "Are you Karen?" was the odd question he asked her next. On Imgur, she recounts the interaction, saying, "I told him that no, Karen was my mom." He smiled briefly, passed her an envelope that wasn't addressed, and turned to go. The Imgur user said, "I went inside and opened it up thinking the encounter was somewhat strange." She was flabbergasted to find $1,000 in cash in the envelope as well as a letter. "Please accept this gift as a random act of kindness," the letter read. "A cherished member of our family devoted much of her time and resources to helping people through random acts of kindness. She gave to others in many ways and always did so anonymously. One way our family has chosen to honor her memory is to continue in the tradition of helping others in the community with acts of random kindness." The letter then went on. A random act of kindness does not have to involve the giving of money. It might be as easy as giving someone a compliment, providing an ear, or volunteering your time. The fact that the act is uninvited and performed without expecting anything in return is crucial. It goes without saying that the person who received the random act of kindness made sure to return the favor. These kinds of tales are what give people hope for mankind again. Thus, constantly keep kindness in mind. Even the tiniest actions, like smiling, may have a profound impact on someone. For the first time, an orangutan giving birth was captured on camera. When she brought her infant over to them, the keepers were taken aback. For much of her adult life, Dana, an orangutan from Sumatra, has battled with giving birth, which is a difficult and deadly process. That is, until she eventually had a miracle back in 2013. The happy news of the 25-year-old orangutan's pregnancy swiftly traveled across Jersey and the Durrell Wildlife Park, but it was accompanied by a cautious undercurrent about the mother's and the unborn child's possible outcomes. This was due to the fact that although this was not the orangutan's first pregnancy, it had not turned out properly the previous time. 4 years prior, in 2009, the stunning orangutan had really attempted to give birth to another child. Unfortunately, Dana had a number of issues during the birth. The most significant and heartbreaking outcome of these issues was that she ultimately lost her baby, who was delivered stillborn. The unfortunate orangutan's miscarried pregnancy also caused her to have some severe health problems. Veterinarians don't go through the gates of Avaloxy because they don't have to. Examining the female orangutan, scientists found that she had a major issue that would have impaired her ability to become a mother as a result of the miscarried pregnancy. Given that her fallopian tubes were blackened, it's possible that she may always be sterile. After learning about this, the park rangers realized that time was of the essence if they hoped to preserve Dana's potential for future conception. Dana was a part of a breeding program that aimed to expand the number of Sumatran orangutans in the globe. So not only did they want to offer the animal a shot at motherhood, but it was also significant to the park. The Durrell keepers brought in Chief Specialist Obstetrician Neil McLaughlin from Jersey General Hospital to see if he could save the baby orangutan's fallopian tubes. Fortunately, Dr. Neil's extraordinary abilities allowed him to offer Dana another opportunity. This indicates that in late 2012, the female orangutan and her mate, 28-year-old Dagu, were able to get pregnant once more. Given Dana's medical history, it was a marvel that she had conceived again beyond all chances. It was still up in the air whether the female orangutan would be able to bear further children, even with Dr. Neil's help. The team was ecstatic to learn that she was pregnant once more. To ensure that nothing went wrong again, they monitored Dana closely to make sure that the pregnancy was proceeding as planned. Throughout her pregnancy, Dr. Neal saw the orangutan and collaborated with the Durrell team to provide the best care possible. Dr. Neal and the colleagues even performed ultrasound scans on Dana's unborn child while it was still inside her to check on its correct development using trained behavior techniques. Provided the finest opportunity for collaboration when it came to making decisions on the health of the mother wildlife. The moment that everyone had been waiting for finally arrived in June 2013. Dana went into labor. The wildlife park had made up their minds in advance to attempt to get a picture of the birth. When Dana's due date approached, they prepared for the first time ever by installing cameras throughout the orangutan's habitat. All that was left to do was wait, with a skilled medical team ready in case the pregnant ape required assistance giving delivery. The female orangutan eventually gave birth to a beautiful baby girl by herself at 12:45 p.m., and the cameras were able to record this incredible event on tape. As the baby crowned, Dana was seen in the video calmly squatting on a perch. Lowering her arms, she made sure the infant would not tumble to the floor, or worse, off the perch that Dana had taken to calling her own. The new mother set about her new responsibilities as a parent right away. She held her infant daughter in her arms, ensuring the child could breathe, before bringing the child up to her face to clean it. In the wild, mothers are responsible for cleaning their newborns, even though we humans are accustomed to having a nurse do it following their grand introduction to the world. Dana appeared to be a natural at cleaning. She was performing really well. The young orangutan soon began to move and scream, indicating that she was unhappy being disturbed from her time in her mother's womb. This occurred shortly after Dana started cleaning her new baby. There was also a lot more background shrieking audible in the video. Dagu, the baby's father, was responding to the arrival of his daughter with these cries. Dana cleaned her baby a little bit more, and then she accomplished something amazing. The mother orangutan approached several of the personnel who were watching the incredible event, tucking her daughter against her bosom with one arm. Dana let the staff have a close-up look at her kid like a very proud mother, as if to convey to them all how thrilled she was to have a baby of her own at last. One keeper was heard remarking, "This is amazing," in the video. "To show us the baby, she arrives. That is amazing." The video was uploaded to YouTube and has received over 5 million views. Many viewers have commented on how lovely and adorable the new baby and her mother were. Gordon Hunt, Durrell's deputy director of mammals, said in a statement from the wildlife park, "I am literally overjoyed to see her healthy if tired, with an equally healthy baby after being personally present when Dana lost her first baby, and nearly losing Dana herself due to the complications. Being there for the baby's birth was an unforgettable moment, made much more poignant by Dana's past. We are all extremely thrilled for her and will keep an eye on her while keeping a respectful distance to ensure that she and her child have every opportunity to succeed together." The park staff came up with a name for their new arrival, Tiny. "It was challenging to choose just one," Gordon said. "Hundreds of suggestions were made. While we scoffed at some, we found others to be really kind. They debated for a while before deciding to name the baby Orangutan Kijaiban, or just Kai. Her name means miracle in Indonesian, since many people assumed her birth was impossible because of her mother's prior medical problems. Any mother, regardless of species, finds having a new child joyful, but this particular birth was also very significant and incredible for Durrell Wildlife Park. This is due to the organization's significant efforts to prevent the extinction of endangered species through fundraising and breeding initiatives, both of which Dana and her newborn child participated in. Dana's daughter's birth excited the park since her species, the Sumatran orangutan, is extremely endangered. But that year, the Durrell Wildlife Park had welcomed more new orangutans than just her. A few months prior, on April 1st, 30-year-old Annette, the orangutan, gave birth to a newborn boy. The male infant, named Jantho, was named for the orangutan release location in Banda Aceh, Sumatra, where he had received rehabilitation. In this protected region, animals that have been saved from the pet trade or from deforested areas are released back into the wild where they can live in relative safety. Because these two remarkable animals were of different sexes and were born so near to one another, the park had the option of breeding them together once they were both old enough. This meant that the wildlife park could carry on with its efforts to gradually increase the number of orangutans worldwide. They were also able to inform the public about these stunning animals and demonstrate to them why they need to be protected by using the amazing footage of Dana giving birth. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.